This is a Mark IV Toyota Supra, and really it needs no introduction from me. It's a true Japanese legend. However, if you're thinking about buying one, do yourself a favour, watch this video because I'm going to take you through all the common problems and help you get a good car. Let's go. So as ever, we're starting at the business end of this car, and can we just take a moment before getting into the checks to appreciate how clean this Supra build is. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, out of place under here. So from the factory, it had the famed 2JZ engine, and there was two variations of this. You could either get the turbocharged version or the non-turbocharged version. Now, no matter what one you went for, these engines were fairly bulletproof. However, given the age and mileage that they've now covered, it's really not uncommon to find that they've been rebuilt, maybe even more than once. The main thing there is to check that that rebuild has been done by a reputable garage and you're not buying someone's unfinished project. Now, one of the first things we want to check here is for oil leaks. Now, we want to do it now, but we also want to check after we've been a quick test drive as well. You think about it, a savvy seller might mop up any mess before we arrive and then think we'll be none the wiser. So take it a quick spin around the block and repeat this check. Now, I'll add a list here of the common areas that they tend to leak from. However, just have a general good check about the engine bay and underneath. Now, another note on engine leaks is that if you spot something that looks fairly significant, I'd be inclined to say walk away from that car, because if it was an easy fix, the seller would have probably already done it. Whilst we're looking for those oil leaks, keep a good look out as well for any coolant leaks. Try to get a look at the lines going to and from the radiator, as well as the condition of the radiator itself. Now, if the car's stock from factory, what they had was a coolant expansion tank that sat between the radiator and the front bumper. However, if it's running a big intercooler like this car is, then chances are that's been relocated elsewhere. Now, the stock ones were known to crack and start to leak, so be careful with that. And if it's been relocated, hunt it out and check all is in good order. Now, as for the water pump itself, good for 50,000 miles, and that ties in nicely with the cam belt as well, which is good for 60,000 miles. So you want to be checking when they were last addressed, and if need be, factor that into the bargain. Now, that brings me on to another point, and that is, if you're in the market for a Supra, you're not going to find a better example than this. And it just so happens to be for sale as well. I'll add the full ad details to the description below, but if you are interested or want to find out more, please drop a comment below or get in touch with the owner via the ad. Now, the final thing we'll say in the engine for now is the coil packs. The coil packs can be known to go wrong on this legendary engine, and whilst not a huge issue, it is something that can be quite common. The best way of spotting it is once we start it up, watch out for a lumpy idle. We'll come to that a bit later in the video once we get the car fired up though. Of course, it goes without saying, we want to check over the bodywork of the Supra you're looking at really quite carefully. Main things we're looking for are mismatched colour panels, and also have a good look at these panel gaps. Make sure everything looks right. We don't want to go buying a car that's had a bit of a dun and then find out there's other problems. Now, if you do see anything that doesn't look quite right, then we're going to need to inspect a bit further, but hopefully that's not the case and the one you're looking at is a good one. Quite uncharacteristic for an older Japanese car, but these tend to not suffer from rust too badly. Now, check my word in there, I say too badly because they do still suffer from it, but not as bad as you might think. Problem is, however, a lot of owners think they don't suffer from rust and therefore certain areas go a bit neglected and the problem gets worse. Some of the main points you want to have a look at is on that back hood. Around about the glass, check there's no rust bubbling there. And also, if you're able to get the car on a ramp in a garage like this, ideal. We'd ideally want to see underneath it and make sure it all looks right. Now, jacking points are a common place as well. If the car's ever been incorrectly jacked, can open up a whole world of corrosion issues, so be careful with that. So bear in mind, you could actually get these with the Targa top as well. Now, if the one you're looking at does have that Targa top fitted, then great, but a couple extra checks. Have the owner go ahead and remove the top so that we can inspect the seals, and it also means we can watch and make sure the roof release mechanism isn't seized in place. Next up, it's time to have the owner fire the car up. Don't you do it, because you're needed right here. Keep your eye on that exhaust, and what we're looking for is to make sure it doesn't billow out with blue smoke when it's starting from cold. If it does, it might suggest something like the valve stem seals are worn and needing replaced. Either way, it's going to mean more money for you. So let the owner do the starting, you do the watching. Next up, transmission. So there was obviously automatic and manual options for these Supras. We'll start with the manuals and come on to the automatics in just a moment. So for the manuals, it was dependent on the engine that was originally fitted in the Supra you're looking at. If it was the naturally aspirated engine, then chances are, if it's not been swapped out, you're going to find a 5-speed manual inside it. Now that was a decent gearbox, capable of handling 400 or 500 horsepower without any problems, but it wasn't as strong as the gearbox that was fitted to the turbocharged Supra from the factory. That was a 6-speed manual, and it was an absolute monster, capable of handling 900, 1000 horsepower with ease. Now when it comes to the automatic gearboxes, again, not a bad gearbox, but just not capable of putting up with the high power levels of that 6-speed manual. Usually around about 300 horsepower is okay, as is said with them. However, any more and you can start running into problems. Now when it comes to the clutch, you should feel it bite 9 or 10 centimeters or so out of the carpet. It's hard to say, but it shouldn't be biting right at the top of the pedal throw, put it that way. Now, otherwise from that, you want to make sure that the feel is alright. Make sure it's not juddering like crazy. Some aftermarket clutches might give a little bit of judder, but if it's vibrating the whole car, then absolutely not. There's a problem there, and it probably needs to be addressed. Now again, with the automatic gearbox, of course, you don't have a clutch to contend with, but make sure that pull-off is nice and smooth, make sure it's changing gear cleanly, and also make sure there's no clunks or bangs or anything like that coming from it. Last tip with the manual gearbox is ensure it's not jumping out of gear as you're going along. Make sure it goes in cleanly and it doesn't jump out itself. That could suggest worn synchro rings. So it's the time you've been waiting for. Get out on that test drive and enjoy the heck out of it. But before you do, get that key in and have a look at the ignition. What we're checking there is all the appropriate warning lights come on, nothing's been disabled, and then obviously we want them to turn out once the car's up and running. But it's important to make sure they're coming on and going off, particularly the ABS. I'm sure your test drive will look a little bit different from that. However, for a YouTube video, you can't really ask for better, so you're very welcome. Now, let me fill you in on what you actually need to listen for and check on your test drive. Number one, listen for a clunking coming from the front. The engine mounts can get worn on these and it produces a sort of hollow clunking sound. So if you're getting that, again, that's something that's going to need to be addressed. You don't want it coming out of your pocket. Make sure you bring that into the deal. Next up, your nose is important for this one. Smell as you're going along. Now if you get a sort of rotten egg, sulfur type smell, that's known to be the catalytic converters that are fitted in the Supras. Many of them are probably running sports cats or D-cats at this point, but if you are getting that smell and the original cats are in, that is probably the culprit. Finally, in terms of handling, these are really sharp, agile cars. If it feels a bit woolly, and it's on original suspension, chances are the shocks might be getting a little bit tired. They are reliable units, don't get me wrong, but at this age, mileage, they can be getting a little bit tired and may feel a little bit woolly and ready for a refresh. And there we go guys, just like that, you've got all the tips you need to go off and find yourself a beautiful Toyota Supra. Now this one happens to be for sale, and as I say, it is a beautiful example. If you are interested, let me know and I'll put you in touch with the owner. If not, good luck with your search.
Any questions or comments, drop them below. Cheers for now.